I think it's actually good that it's going so bad in Europe because it's almost like the patient is so sick.
Never waste a crisis.
The problem is if you're a founder and you raise money, like you kind of need to go big or bust, right? That's kind of, it's hard to stay in between. I also work really hard because I tweeted like, I think 125,000 times over 10 years. So it's like 40 tweets a day.
You've contributed so many brain cells to
so
spending time on X. Pieter Levels, one of the most prolific indie hackers and digital nomads, whose businesses now do more than $3 million in revenue, and it's just Pieter working on them.
Cheers.
I think you are maybe the most prominent indie hacker. Nomad List got to 700K in ARR. Remote OK has gotten to $3.4 million in revenue. Photo AI got to 600K in ARR. And these are all just you. Like, these are not startups that you have started.
Yeah.
These are just Pieter Levels productions. You're also the vanguard of the digital nomad thing. And so you've lived in more than 40 countries and 150 cities.
Yeah, I think so. I've mostly just been working on my laptop for the last decade, right? Like traveling around, just making stuff, making little like creative projects that I needed to solve my problems. And then most of the times nobody else needed that problem solved, but like a few times it worked. And then, I mean, I used Stripe a lot, right? Like when Stripe came to Holland, back then I lived in Holland, it was 2014, I think. Then I was like, oh shit, now I can start making money. And that was the year I started making money. When I was a kid, I think I was like 12 years old, I was making websites too. And I wanted to charge money on the internet. And I remember signing up to WorldPay. I think it was WorldPay. And it was a giant contract. It was in America, and I live in Holland. And I asked my dad to sign for it. And my dad read the whole like contract, and it was like, you're liable for damages up to $100 million. I mean, it's like, what am I signing for? I'm like, no, Dad, you don't understand. Like, I need to make money on the internet.
Yes.
Just sign it. And he signed it, and we faxed it. We faxed it to America, and I had a merchant account, and I never sold anything.
Yeah.
Luckily, maybe, because otherwise we would be liable for damages.
I feel like this is a common thread amongst entrepreneurs of getting their parents to help them with things they shouldn't do. Patrick at one point got a demo of like a Sun Microsystems workstation.
Oh my God.
Remember, these were like very high-end workstations. And he just filled out the form and like, got them. And, they came with a truck and they unloaded it and he was playing with it. And I just remember the Sun Microstations rep was calling the house, and they were like, is Mr. Collison interested in continuing with a purchase? And our mom was like, Mr. Collison is doing his homework and you need to stop calling me. And they hadn't realized that he was like 12 years old at the time or whatever.
Man, amazing.
Yeah. Did you try to monetize projects before you started building them?
No,
YouTube
so what happened, I was making music and I was DJing, I was organizing like nightclub nights in Holland and UK and stuff. Drum and bass music. You're Irish, drum and bass. Like drum and bass, most people don't really know, but British people know, Irish people know. So when YouTube started monetizing videos, I was uploading my music already. So I was one of the first YouTube monetizing people. And I was like number 1 or number 2 in Holland for a while in the top channels. But the thing is, I started making money, like $1,000, and then $2,000, and $8,000 per month, a lot of money. And I was in university.
So it seems like you've done well on this, kind of being a person on the internet. How much of a partisan are you on the topic of the indie hacker approach? Because obviously, most of tech doesn't run on the indie hacker way, where again, you're building multi-million-dollar revenue businesses all by yourself. Do you think way more people should be doing the indie hacking thing?
So, I mean, I think the internet makes you partisan, right? So I don't think I've been partisan much, but I think...
Until you got on X.
Yeah, well, X does help with that. But you have to understand, 2013, 14, when I entered kind of the startup world, there was barely any there was no indie hacking, there was no bootstrapping almost, except Patrick McKenzie, who you know well. You would find investors, you would raise money, you would grow fast, you would hire a lot of people, you get a big office, remote didn't exist, right, remote work. So compared to that, like what's possible now, there's alternatives possible now.
Yes.
And you can make a lot of money with this. I don't think you can become a billionaire. Maybe we will see that in the future, but...
So you think for talented engineers who have a commercial brain and who are good at product, they should at least seriously evaluate the path of just building their own successful products on the internet like you have.
I think you should... Look, what I hate most about VC stuff is when you see people burn money. You probably hate this as well. A company with no users raise $50 million, $100 million, and you're like, what is this product? Like, it doesn't have any traction. And it's just hype. We've all seen these startups, and they just disappear. And I think it's much more interesting to, and maybe you guys did the same with Stripe, but validate first and build a business first, and see if you get traction. Like, get to 50K or 100K a month.
No, look, I'm with you. You know, despite the fact Stripe has obviously raised VC, we just like started writing code. We got our first paying customer way before we raised any money for the business.
Wow.
And then it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And it's a little bit different for a company in the financial services space. You need to be well capitalized. From the
but this is the thing. So it's natural. It's kind of organic, right? Even if you raise money, you did it in an organic way. And you only raise more when you see the growth coming.
Have you ever been tempted to raise for one of your projects?
No, but a lot of VCs have been in my DMs and they want to invest. And I think now, because now like I'm financially independent, I made a lot of money. Now I could do it because now I'm at a point where like it sounds fun to play with other people's money, you know, like, but also in a serious way, it sounds fun to go like to a bigger thing. I mean, that's something you typically say after you've been in a week in San Francisco, right? You start talking like this. But I'm not convinced yet, but I think now it will be fun, for example. But the problem is if you're a founder and you raise money, you kind of need to go big or bust, right? That's kind of, it's hard to stay in between. You can't like make $10 million a year. You kind of need to make $100 million a year. You kind of need to become a unicorn. That's difficult because the odds of that happening are not super high. Like it's a few percentage maybe. So most people don't get there, and they do spend like 5 years or I don't know, 7 years of their 20s on that. And that's something where if you would be an indie, you would have a $10 million a year company. And you have 100% ownership. It's that's amazing. You have so much money.
You're saying as a VC-funded startup, you're kind of locking in the expectations for your company in advance as to what's successful and what's not. And it's quite liberating to just start building things. Pieter Levels Enterprises broadly is making $3.1 million a year. And you've launched 70 projects?
Yeah, probably more, you know, because I don't have this list, but it's like, it's
You've
my
launched
pin
so many
tweets,
that you lose track, but it's at least 70. Do you shut them down if they're like becoming too small to be
No, so
relevant,
I try to keep a lot of them running. I like to keep the internet history existing. Like it's sad to see all these websites disappear, you know?
Yes.
So I keep them on my server
URLs
running.
shouldn't break.
No, one project that still runs on Stripe is go effing do it. I don't know if I can curse, but go fucking do it.com. Where, for example, you want to quit smoking. So you write, I want to quit smoking, and the deadline is like, or I don't want to smoke. And the deadline is like 1 December 2025. And you have to enter the email of your friend, and he checks it. And then you enter your credit card with Stripe, and it creates a customer, and it doesn't charge the customer yet. And you set a price, so for example, $100. And then on 1 December 2025, your friend gets the email, did he smoke, you know, the last time?
Yeah.
And he says yes or no. And if it's yes, you get charged, and I get the money. And that project still works, and it still makes, I think, like $50 a month. And I didn't change the code in 10 years.
Yeah.
Like PHP, you know, like
Yes.
Still runs.
So part of what you're doing is you're creating all these businesses that have actually pretty long lifetimes as well.
Yeah.
Who should try the digital nomad thing? Who does it appeal to?
So I think anyone, it doesn't matter if you're 20 or 70 or whatever. It's so interesting because you change as a person also, but I think digital nomad is so cool because leaving your own country, which I did the first time, I did a study exchange program. I went to Korea in like 2010, I think, and from university, and I was like, this is a completely different world. I never left Europe before. I went to France, you know, like Italy, but like, this is like, there's neon signs, and it's like,
faraway places.
It's crazy. This changes you on such a fundamental level, going to the other side of the world. It's amazing, and it's way safer than you think. Like usually nothing happens, and I've never been robbed except in my hometown. It was a burglary, so in 10 years of digital nomad, nothing ever happens. So yeah, I think it completely expands your horizon. There's nothing I can recommend as much as people just go travel. And don't be scared, man. Just like, there's always people who will help you. If you don't speak the language, you can use your arms and like...
How did you make it not be lonely, not knowing anyone?
It was extremely lonely.
Oh, okay. It just was lonely.
No, it was like, I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then you get, like you lose contact with the grounds of your own culture, your home country. And everything's fine. People are nice, but you're like, it fundamentally removes your foundational culture at some point. It starts...
You become untethered. Yeah,
untethered, that's it. And you have to rebuild that up. And that's a psychologically taxing process. It takes some years.
Yes. What have you learned from Patio 11?
Dude, amazing guy. Like, what inspiration. So you have to go in the time machine back in 2013 or even earlier. I'm reading Hacker News in university. And I read 2 types of articles. I read, we're raising $40 million for a startup. Back then, Hacker News was full of raising. It was like special. Now you don't see it anymore. Now it's more tech. And you'd read like Patrick McKenzie, I made $60,000 this year with appointment reminder, this site, which is like, he would go to hair salons, I think, and then sell his appointment reminder website. And he would
just reminded people to show up for their appointments.
Yes, like
it was
with
like
SMS
the most amazingly
like
simple
amazing.
business.
And I would read this post, of like, this is amazing. This guy, like $60K a year, that's big. Like, we need to do this. So seeing somebody making a cool, like honest business, and another guy like John Youngfook, it was a few years after Patrick McKenzie, but he was also traveling as a nomad in Singapore and Asia, and he was very well dressed, and he was making a beautiful SaaS. And I was impressed that they were making like honest, cool, clean businesses.
Yes.
And I want to do the same thing.
One thing I was reflecting on is the fact that you are now a big brand, in a way, the brand of Pieter Levels, where, well, no, think about it. You sold $50,000 of pre-orders for your book before you had written any of the book. You just said, I might write a book and buy it here, and you got $50,000 of sales. And so to what extent does the recipe now work? Because you are launching these products, and if someone else was to build the flight simulator, or if someone else was to write
I've
the
seen
book,
these replies too.
That it wouldn't sell as well.
Yeah, I think it's, of course, it's part of it. But I also work really hard because I tweeted like, I think 125,000 times over 10 years. So it's like 40 tweets a day.
You've contributed so many brain cells to
so
spending time on X.
Exactly.
Are you getting a lot of ChatGPT referrals? Yes, people talk about this.
Amazing, yeah. So ChatGPT, so I've seen the growth. ChatGPT a month ago was, so if you have the Google traffic, that's like 100. ChatGPT was like 4, so 4%. And now it's 20%.
Wait, in the last month, ChatGPT has gone from 4% to 20% of your traffic.
Yeah, so it went 5x.
Yeah.
And I checked other websites, it's the same story. And I think it's beneficial for me because it's very hard for me as a solo person to like do SEO stuff. And I hate SEO stuff. I just want to make a cool product and a cool website with a nice title and whatever.
You talk in your book about automation being really important for making the indie hacker recipe work, because I guess if you get drowned in operational work, you're not going to be able to do multiple projects, you won't have as many shots on goal, everything like that. And so how much has the automation of your business tasks improved over the past 10 years, if at all?
Man, it's been amazing for me.
Like, okay, what have you automated?
So for example, Nomad List, it's like this big, it's a big website. You can visit, you can find places to live and work remotely, but you can also join the community. You can pay for like $100. You join a community of like meetups, a chat group, all this stuff. This chat group was like hell to maintain. It was, I mean, from communities, so much drama. I've had crazy stories. But
if they are content moderating the community now?
So, exactly. So it was very hard for me to moderate this stuff. And it was very hard for me to be impartial.
Yeah.
So you have like politically different sides. And I feel I'm kind of in the middle, kind of neutral. But they don't, like the moment you ban one side, they're like, oh, you're this, you're that side. And so with GPT, it's actually neutral. Like it's really good. I write down the rules of my chat group. And it's 40,000 people. And it doesn't ban anymore. It just mutes people for like a day or 10 minutes or
like the debate moderators in the presidential debates.
They just mute it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's it. So like I can either hire people or I can just use GPT API. And I don't like hiring because I need to manage people, and I don't really like manage people because it's not my thing. I like to create things.
Well, in your book, you recommend that people build for their own understanding of the problems they have. Shouldn't you make an investment product? You and Warren Buffett basically have the same views, which is a lot of money managers and kind of wealth management products are very bad because they're charging you very high fees to invest in bad things. And actually what the vast majority of people should do is buy a simple index, maybe the S&P 500 or the MSCI World or something, and then just leave the money there and don't touch it. And especially don't sell it during drawdowns.
So Vanguard.
Exactly.
But Vanguard already does that.
Yeah, but there aren't good products for Europeans, I feel like. That's like less common.
We buy them via Ireland.
Okay,
UCITS.
Sure, you do. But again, I feel like, if you wanted an idea for the next business, I think good investment.
There's a lot of money in there.
Good investment products for Europeans.
But then you increase the price. It's a problem. Like if you resell a Vanguard ETF that has 0.07 fee per year.
No, you need large scale to make it work. And maybe that doesn't fit with the indie hacker philosophy.
No, I think it's a cool idea because it helps people get richer and wealthier.
Yeah, and there's this home country bias in stock purchasing where people in Germany buy German stocks.
This is crazy. I talk to my parents. They're like,
they're buying the Dutch stock market probably.
Yeah, no, and I'm like, you need to buy S&P 500. They're like, no, we're not going to buy in America. We're going to buy Royal Dutch Shell. I'm like, come on. And they have all their money in Shell, like in oil. And then have you seen Tesla, like electric cars now? And they're like, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think index is very important. I think, look, if you make money, like as an indie hacker or even as a VC founder, like it's very important to not spend all this money because you have a limited time in startups to make money, I think, and put this money in the market. And it doesn't have to be only America. Like I always talk about Asia, and it's very hard to benefit in Asia from the economies rising because the public markets are not as efficient as in the US. So you should definitely have S&P 500, but definitely you can look at other ETFs in the rest of the world. I got some China, always never doing well, but at some point I'll be right, So
yes,
yeah. It's very important to invest your money well. And most people don't know. Most people don't know personal finance. Like you don't get it in school. You save money, but your money, your cash disappears the moment you have it.
Yes. Are you one of those people who hacks the thermostat when you get to a hotel room?
I've tried, but I've never succeeded. I've
also
watched
have
the YouTube
failed.
videos.
I've watched the YouTube videos. Yeah,
And it's always some different model, Siemens. Like.
And I think they're wise to such people. Like they make it hard to to override them
it's
now.
Air conditioning problem. It's such a big problem.
We need people in the comments to teach us how to override the hotel thermostats, because the ones that are set to like 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 22 degrees Celsius in Europe, I mean, that should be a...
I mean, how many times do you get back to Europe? Like often, right? Or no?
Often, yeah.
It's a massive problem.
The European hotels and air conditioning, it's not a good situation.
No, but it's Airbnbs too. Like my friend went to an Airbnb in Italy and it said, don't put it below 25 degrees because of regulation. It's like, this is unacceptable. And all the studies show, like, look at like Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore.
Pretty cold.
You need really cold. Like the sleep quality gets so good.
Yeah, we're talking about European air conditioning. You've talked about the EU accelerationism movement. What is required for EU accelerationism?
So I think it was 2 years ago, 1 year ago, I saw Bev Jezels, who's Guillaume Verdon. He made EAC, which is like effective accelerationism, which is like, let's accelerate America again. Like it's been a very depressing time, especially with COVID. Let's look at the benefits of technology and AI for the future. And I thought, that's amazing. We need to do the same for Europe. So I did EU/AC, like let's do this for Europe, because Europe has the same kind of like depressing, kind of down vibe about the future. And I understand, because there's a lot of problems. It's not an easy life for a lot of people. So that got a lot of traction. And I crowdsourced this like bug board where everybody could submit their idea, how to save Europe, how to fix Europe. And like tens of thousands of people submitted ideas, and then they upvote each other's ideas and stuff. I think number one is just like remove the regulatory burden for new businesses. And there's other stuff like remove the cookie banner and all this stuff. And I hope it will be easier in Europe to start a business, run a business as easy as it is in America. I think there's so much... Nobody doubts the European talent or the intelligence. Like it's cool, smart, ambitious people, but there's a ceiling for them. They can't go higher because they're getting pushed down by governments, by regulation. And it's like, what are you doing, like European countries? Like, you have amazing people. You could compete easily.
I think there's kind of two things. One is where the regs are just bad, and the second is where the regulations are not standardized, where places where employment law is really annoyingly different across European countries. And so if you're a 10-person startup and you employ people across Europe, it's actually really cumbersome, whereas in the United States, that's quite easy.
Yeah, so the problem with Europe is, it's very funny. You have all these different countries, and you have kind of the left side of the political spectrum are like not very pro-business. They're more for regulation and for protecting people and understand and the climate change and stuff. And then you have the right side, which is pro-business, but they're also nationalists. But the problem is, what we need is like pro-business and federal Europe. Like you need to be pro-Europe, and that's not nationalist, and you need to be pro-business. So it doesn't exist. So it's like, where do you start? I think it's actually good that it's going so bad in Europe now, because it's almost like the patient is so sick.
Never waste a crisis.
Yeah, like finally Europeans are kind of like, maybe we should do something. Like 2 years ago, when I would tweet about this, they said, stop talking bad about Europe. Like it's going great here. And now they're like, okay, maybe we need to do something.
What would you highlight as the ideas that need fixing?
I think the problem is, if there's not a lot of opportunities in Europe for people to get jobs or start businesses, then they're going to look down on Americans getting rich with these big businesses, and because they're jealous. Like Europeans are jealous, and you need to change this idea that business is bad, that getting rich is bad. Getting rich is simply a representation of your added value to the world economy. In most cases, of course, there's edge cases. Generally, the money in your bank account is how much value added to society. And in Europe, that completely does not. Like they really think different. In America, you get much more respect for being an entrepreneur. But I would say, don't be afraid of money. Like money is a tool in this world to change the world.
If you were running Stripe, what would you fix?
I think it's going really well recently. I think it wasn't going well after COVID. There was a few years where the API was getting more and more complicated. We all complained about it. It felt like it was being run by engineers, not by people who actually use Stripe. Like illogical defaults on the API, Like one time I had this bug, and it was from the Stripe API because it changed. and it didn't create a customer anymore. Everybody was a guest. I was like, why would I want people to be a guest? Like I cannot even curate them as a customer anymore. Those kind of things. But now it seems much better, and it seems to be like sanity has returned. But it's scary, and it must be scary for you because you're running a big company. It's very hard to manage a company from small to big and not become like corporate, you know? Of course, you're always corporate because you need to do B2B sales, it becomes more corporate. But you need to keep the original Stripe mentality of like, it was simple, right? Stripe.js. It was one line of code you would add to your page and you had a payment button, you know? Yeah. Keeping that is so important, keeping the original soul of the company. And I think you're doing a great job. Because essentially, I don't want to go into Stripe, do anything. I want to go there to see how much money I make. And I want to go back to my coffee and code a little bit. Like I see all these new features, for example, Stripe makes like workflows and stuff. And I think it's very cool, but I don't have time to do this stuff. Yeah. Because it's not that important for me.
I think our perspective is you should be able to get started with anything instantly. You shouldn't even need to integrate an API. You should just be able to send a payment link or something like that.
That's amazing, yeah.
You know, I'm always saying to people that, you know, generally people will not even want to start by integrating the API. They'll want to start by sending people to a hosted page. Or
that's what I do now, like a payment link, yeah.
But you will over time get to, we think the workflow engine is really cool because if you want to build something complex, you don't have to build it yourself. But if someone is starting with the workflow engine, then something's gone horribly wrong. You know what I mean?
I think so the challenge is like exposing them slowly to all the stuff that's possible.
Exactly. Last question, if we're back here in 5 years, will things be kind of similar where you've worked on a bunch of projects that are working really nicely? Will things be different where maybe you've sold a few of the projects? Maybe you've started a VC-funded startup and raised $1 billion from SoftBank?
That would be like...
you know, exactly. But I'm just curious, what does the next 5 years hold?
Man, I have no clue. It would be so funny if you become VC. I've been starting to invest.
Yeah, maybe you become a VC?
No, I've been starting to invest. And every time I invest, I feel like bad because I feel like a faker, you know? But... like I invested in Cursor, for example, like very nice, and
that seems that that'll do okay for you.
Well, who knows? But yeah, it's fun to. I think you need to be neuroflex. You need to be a little bit flexible with your neurons, and like you can change your ways a little bit, and it's interesting to try different stuff. But yeah, I'm really enjoying life with my girlfriend now, and we're still traveling a lot. It's fun, and we meet all these cool people here, and like I want that to continue, and. I'm just very happy. I'm every day grateful to be able to live this life, and it's so good. So thank you.
Thanks for coming by.
Thank you for having me.